Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Max Hayes, your host, and as Forest climb to third in the Premier League table. Yes, you heard me right. That is third in the Premier League table. We will finish this weekend third as well after the other fixtures played out today, and it's the best start to a Premier League season since 1998, and it is certainly a very, very good time to be a Forest fan to discuss the 3 goals, 3 points and third place in the Premier League. Joined first of all by TalkSport broadcaster and Forest fan Max Scott. Max, good to see you, mate. Liking the Forest merch. Is that the art of football jumper?
This is art of football. I can't tell you how much money I've spent on their stuff, but yeah, what a weekend, eh?
Yeah, well, I think a few of the Art of Football guys listen to this podcast. So if you're listening and watching and see Max in it, send him some merch. Send him some merch.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've been in touch with Art of Football, and they were absolutely delightful. I bought a Cloughie's Forest jumper, Cloughie green, just the Forest green, and on the back. I lost it, left it on a train, and I couldn't get it. And I've asked Art of Football if they can reprint it, and they couldn't at the time. So if they can, crikey Moses, I will be indebted forever.
There we go. Art of Football, get on it. Also joined by Forest fan podcast regular Aussie Dave. Dave, good to see you, mate. You were in the posh seats yesterday as well, and you've been here for the last 3 games. You've seen 7 goals and 3 probably
9 points.
9 points. 3 of the best games all season. You must be loving life, mate. We need you to stay in the UK.
Yeah, so the link to the GoFundMe page is going to be in the description later to keep David Boulderman in the UK. I've got a 21 points from 4 possible record. But yes, I too have been purchasing myself some merch. So I got myself a lovely new scarf courtesy of the lovely people outside the hotel, and got myself this lovely new modest Forest hoodie from the Forest shop yesterday after the lovely day. I met John McGovern yesterday. What a lovely fellow and just terrific ambassador of the team. And he was able to recount for me the story of how his family owned a pub in Brisbane, Queensland called McGovern's. So just a lovely time to be a Forest fan. But I was actually thinking, Max, that, I was trying to remember back to when Forest were last third and this time in the Premier League. And I thought to myself, well, Max Hayes is probably not going to remember that. And then I thought, well, maybe Max Hayes is so young that he doesn't even remember the promotion season. I thought, no, he's very fresh and young face, but he's a little older than that. So, but what a terrific time. So great to be here. Great to be at the City Ground yesterday, and can't wait to talk through 11 fantastic on-field performances and 5 great substitutes.
Yep, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Mark will also hopefully join us as well later on. We are live on YouTube, Garibaldi Red, and Facebook, Nottingham Forest News. So on this Sunday evening, because frankly, what else are you doing with your Sunday evening? Come on, no one does anything. So let us know your thoughts on the game and do get involved in the conversation throughout. Max, let's start with you then, mate. Just what a great day yesterday. 3 points, 3 goals. As David said then, some standout substitutions as well. A nice display from Forza Garibaldi. The atmosphere was there, and it just felt like it was, it just almost summed up Forest season so far, and to finish the weekend third in the Premier League. Crikey.
Yeah, it was a fantastic day. I thought it was the best atmosphere I've seen at the City Ground in quite a while. For me, the standout moment, was obviously there's loads of things we can talk about on the pitch, but the standout moment was when Forest fans were singing Forest Are Back. And it just felt sort of quite poignant, really, that we've been in the Premier League now. This is our 3rd season back, right? And we started singing Forest Are Back when we first got promoted. And I think it was quite poignant yesterday that a convincing result, albeit against the 10-man West Ham, to put us 3rd in the Premier League. And that's when we start singing Forest Are Back sort of in unison. And I thought it's indicative of where we really believe we should be. And, the owner's ambition to get Forest back into Europe and to be fighting in Europe has been balked at, understandably, you could say. But I think that he deserves credit for almost setting the standard for fans, for setting that as an expectation. There's a fine line between genius and lunacy. And the fact that we are here talking about potentially can we maintain some sort of European place this season, it's going to be a fight. but it's in our sort of shared consciousness now and our shared expectation, because we know this is really where we do belong. It's not just, we don't just belong in the Premier League, we belong at the very top, even though a generation of us have never actually seen us at the top, maybe 2 generations really. And so, yeah, magical day as always when Forest won at the City Ground. But for me, that was a really poignant moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also thought just before the game as well, I thought that the minute's silence was beautifully observed by both West Ham and the majority of the Forest fans as well. I thought it was really nicely done. And then the display and Mulligan-Tyre after was really loud. It just kind of felt like one of those proper footballing days at the City Ground. David, I just kind of wonder when we're going to games now. I mean, you can obviously, tell me what you thought of the game as a whole. But, Max talks about their kind of the generations now almost not seeing the success where we are and third in the Premier League. But I almost wonder now when we walk to the City Ground, and even just any away game at the minute, you have that special feeling. And Nuno and everyone on, everyone involved with the club on and off the pitch has done a great job of almost bringing that special feeling back, to sing Forest are back.
Oh, the Forest are back chant was a terrific moment. And if you think back a week to the Leicester City match with the chant, with the Stevie Cooper chants as well, the Forest fans' ability to understand the moment that they're in and that the team is going through and giving their team something on the pitch is a sight to behold. But to your point on I was in a different seating experience yesterday. The professionalism of that club, going through, the posh seats as you called it, Max, and how I was greeted by John McGovern and that whole setup. If you ever have the chance to do the Vault experience or any of those corporate hospo experiences, it is a moment of a lifetime doing that. And it's the professionalism of the entire outfit, and it just shows. And so for being someone who hasn't been to Nottingham for 4 or 5 months since the end of last season, even the city just feels different. Like after the match, there's more fireworks going off. There's just more energy. The Italian place that I go to has got a few more people in it. It's just a little bit more up vibe and upbeat. And so you can just tell that expectation is just, what does they say? A rising tides lifts all boats. And so to your point on Marinakis, he's certainly delivered for us. And look, even in our content creator network, there seems to be a new Nottingham Forest podcast every single week. It's just spurring up. It's just a great time to be a Forest fan, Max. But I love getting to games. It's just the best. It's emotional.
Yeah, it is. It is, mate. It is. I remember when there was just 2 Forest YouTube channels when I first started, and there we go. There's about 50 odd now, but it shows the growth of the club really, and in particular, the growth of the fan base. Max, wanted to kind of go back to the first half in particular, and I was talking to a few people, and they said, "Oh, I thought Forest started quite not sloppy, but it was a little bit of a slow start." I just thought the first kind of 15 minutes was quite even, and I thought West Ham had chances, and obviously Forest did too, but I think then it's when Forest almost, I think this throughout, the first and the second half, they don't almost step it up a level, but they almost regroup. And, when the ball goes out and there's a bit of time for Forest to get together, and then you almost trust the plan now that Nuno's putting in place. And obviously Morgan Gibbs-White comes in to replace Anderson. So there was there's that one change there. So you almost felt like you could trust the plan, even if maybe the first kind of 5 or 10 minutes didn't go too well.
Yeah, I think that's a hallmark of Nuno's side. It's just organised. It knows what it's doing. It's patient. I can't really remember many games where we've got off to an electrifying start, and I think that's not the point really. The point is how does it finish, and this season's been finishing really well most of the time. So I think there's a steeliness and an assuredness about the side. And I tell you what, we've not spoken since the Leicester games, so sorry if this goes back a little bit, but more when I watched Forest Leicester, when I was watching Leicester, it felt like, and I mean this in a respectful way, I felt like I was watching a Steve Cooper side. And that's obvious, Leicester are a Steve Cooper side, but it just made me compare the assuredness of under Nuno. There's a clear plan. They know what they're doing. They know what position they need to be in all the time, going forward, going back, out of possession, etc. Whereas it felt under Steve Cooper, perhaps at its worst, that we didn't really know what we were doing, and there were players capable on the pitch, but there wasn't a sort of clear way of playing. And it's just magnificent that we've gone from one magical manager, Steve Cooper, who did everything he could for us and got us up, kept us up, and now we've managed to stumble across Nuno, who's given us this steeliness that I didn't think was possible in such a short space of time. You know, we've gone from almost being relegated last season to being third in the Premier League, and I know we all know that, but it's magnificent and remarkable what what one pre-season has done, essentially, which, you know, everybody knows their role and everybody knows their place, and I honestly didn't think we'd get there this quickly, and I think now it's about maintaining those standards throughout the rest of the season, because teams will start to figure us out a little bit, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Long may it continue. A few comments on YouTube and Facebook. Ian says every player across the team now seems to have absolute clarity of their and each other's role and demonstrating leadership throughout. We have stability and an amazing foundation on which to build. Phil says, so happy for Ola Aina getting that goal. How happy the squad are as well. This one from, there was a funny one here that made me laugh from Peter. Never thought I would cheer Tottenham and Man United this weekend. Feel dirty, but strangely cleansed now. Yeah, I agree. Who'd have thought we'd be? It's actually funny. I was speaking to a good mate, Pat, who's been on the podcast before, and we talk a lot about Forest and we go to games with each other. So share a lot of opinions. And he was saying to me how bizarre it was today. He was checking the top 4-5's results, and he wasn't looking down the other end of the table. And I think that just really is, as you were alluding to, Max, just a short while ago, how far Forest have come, you know, in such a short space of time.
We're cheering the draws, Max. We're hoping for a draw so that it takes the point off them. Can I just build on Max's point on the role of the players? And the match yesterday, clearly they weren't pumping it long to Chris Wood in the same way, because they knew that the strength of the West Ham defenders were bigger. And so the simplicity of the strategy, that Moreno's side of the ball touched it twice as much as Aina's side. And we just saw the dividends of that with that first goal that we got. And so the simplicity of the strategies and just those ways to change it. And he's just absolutely nailed it from the strategy for the players that we have, Nuno, in place as well. You know, we don't win the ball in the top third. We try to win the ball in the middle and then just release. Oh, goodness, coming to us live.
I'm not sure about the audio. Mark, sort your audio out. Are you in some casino or something? He is in some casino. Mark, can you hear us?
I can. Give me a second.
Okay, all right, okay.
So, Max, I can just confirm that Mark is in a casino, because he's just worked out that if he puts 15 quid on Nottingham Forest at 200 to 1 to win the Premier League, that will cover all of his Champions League fees for getting to every match next season. That's what he is doing.
Absolutely, mate. Get those plane tickets booked. I don't know where you were, David, with your point. So we'll come back in a minute. But I honestly wanted to start really with, you know, we go around and we talk about key performances at Forest, and in fact, Max, you can kick us off with this one. When we think and when we talk about players that maybe go under the radar, and I wanted to start quite quickly on him, and we mentioned him last time, but I just think Nicholas Dominguez and how he does go under the radar, and he is an absolute, you know, every single challenge, every single 50-50, the turnover of play, when you watch him and you follow him quite close. And I did that yesterday for the first time in a while. You know, I just followed him quite closely, not only on the ball, but out of possession. And I just thought he was excellent. And almost that shows that Forest have got such strong players that aren't even getting onto the, you know, starting 11 a lot of the time. And now Dominguez comes back in, just how good of a job he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was just incredibly composed, I thought, yesterday. There were loads of little moments where he didn't panic and, you know, kept possession when, you know, he might not have done, or when you might not think he would have done. Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. He's been fantastic. And I think it goes to show that in a team where there's a really strong culture and there's a really there's obviously a shared set of values and a shared way of playing, all those things we see, it means that people, when you have quality players like we do, like Nico Dominguez, they can come in and do a really important job. And then I've got no doubt that James Ward-Prowse at some point in the season is going to have a really important role to play, and he's going to come in and out. You know, we'll see it with Morgan Gibbs-White and Elliot Anderson. So the fact that you've got people like Nico Dominguez that can come in and know exactly what they're doing and impress in such an important sort of time for us says everything about the culture of the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a big character in the dressing room as well. He seems that he fits in very well. And there's so many players that have that buzz about them. If you've not seen Ola Aina and Callum Hudson-Odoi dancing in the dressing rooms, there's a video on Twitter, I think, from Ola Aina's Snapchat. Go and watch it. It's brilliant. It honestly made my night last night. Mark, we've got to come to you because I don't know how long you're going to be here with us for. Are you working on a Sunday, mate? Where are you?
I am, as my name. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Yeah, as my name tag suggests, I am in Maricopa. If you don't know where that is, Max, I'll save you digging out the atlas. It's in Arizona. And I am here for a conference that, yes, it's being held at a casino. So, tough life. So I had to travel on a Sunday, but I am in a casino. So I guess that's what you call the yin and yang. I don't know how long I have with you guys, but I do have 3 hot takes I wanted to drop on you, if that's okay.
Go on. Of course. Fire away, mate.
Fantastic. The first of which is, I don't think in Forest's history there has ever been a better free than Ola Aina. I'm prepared to take hits online. People can drop notes in here. I can't think of one.
I'll bet a free transfer.
Free transfer.
I thought you were saying 3 then for a second. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, well, easy. But yeah, free transfer. Yeah.
It's a good point.
It's been really
I mean, I'd have to think about it, look through the history of it, but certainly in recent times, I can't think of a more effective free transfer. I wonder if there's any sort of transfer magic that Cloughie pulled off, and because I don't know how much all those boys cost in that time. But certainly in the modern era, I think you can't go, just initially, I can't think of anything better.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's our player. He's not a lone player.
Right.
I think that's probably quite a good shout.
All right, cool. Here's my second one. This is going to raise some heckles, I'm sure. But I think in modern times, so since the European Cup triumphs, I don't know that we've had a better, more balanced fullback pairing than Aina and Moreno. We've had excellent fullbacks. Stuart Pearce, undoubtedly the best fullback to grace our club, possibly the greatest fullback England's ever produced, period. We have Viv Anderson. I mean, we've had good fullbacks down the years. But
Jim Brennan and Matthew Louis-Jean. How about that?
Thierry Bonelaire and Alan Rogers.
They were absolutely gold.
But I'm talking about balance. So defensively, they both do their jobs. I mean, one-on-one, has anyone taken Aina to the cleaners yet? It's ridiculous. Moreno's different class. So defensively, they give it you. Offensively, they give it you, as we saw yesterday with an assist and a goal. I'm thinking about balanced fullbacks. Have we ever seen a better pairing in modern-day Forest?
I'm going to say Stuart Pearce and Des Lizzle have certainly got... Yeah, Max knows I'm happy to tell.
I knew that.
They've certainly got those two covered. Look, one sunny day don't make a summer, Mark. Let's end of the season. If we can finish higher than 3rd, then I'm prepared to give it. But Stuart Pearce and Des Liddle, he was in Forest. He's like one of the great Forest right backs. He was almost right back of the century or whatever it was. Yeah. He's class player. Stuart Pearce, come on. He's got 16 goals in the Premier League. Like, come on.
I'm not arguing with Stuart Pearce. He and John Robertson are my favourite players ever to play in the Garibaldi.
Mark, you could argue that Stuart Pearce and anybody is the best fullback combination in Forest history. So, but it's a great take. You're certainly right, Mark. I think, look, Moreno's ability to get forward, both their abilities to get forward, the passing game and also the skill on them both. You're not wrong in terms of a set of attributes and the balance that they bring. Goodness me. And given that they're keeping Nico Williams out of the team and he's not in terrible form.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a 10-game sample. So I know I'm being slightly hyperbolic there, but it's something to think about. And I think we do need to appreciate, as Forest fans, how lucky we are to have the two of them at the same time because they're an incredible combination. Final hot take. Really going to go out on a limb with this one.
Yeah.
I don't think Forest are getting relegated this season.
Really? That's a great take, right?
Stick my neck out. I was sticking my neck out on that one.
And Mark,
what's more likely, Mark? Champions League or relegation?
All right. So it's possible that I reached out to a certain Trevor that Max knows, at least tangentially. You don't know me directly, but
Trevor's mentioned every time you're on this podcast, mate.
Anymore he is.
Yeah.
And quite possibly had him put a bet on Forest winning the Premier League. I can neither confirm nor deny. But I heard David at the end of his patter there a couple of minutes ago. And yes, my Champions League trips will be covered.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Mark. I don't know how much longer you're going to stay. Have you got to get back to work or anything,
I
Mark?
do. I need to run back here in a couple of minutes, yeah.
Okay. Well, look, you tell your boss, mate, that you've got the Garibaldi Red podcast to do. That comes first. Come on.
Well, seriously, though, I mean, my kind of wrapping up thoughts. What an incredible, incredible day. I mean, sat in my front room in Colorado in America, screaming my head off. And I was talking with, oh my gosh, he's going to get a second name check, with Trev. In fact, when Aina scored, I FaceTimed Trev and he was on delay, so he hadn't seen it. And so I was like, oh gosh, I need to shut up. You need to watch it. But I was saying to him, in modern times, I don't think I've loved a Forest team more. And he said, oh, what about the promotion team? I'm like, to Max's point, a third of that team were loners. It didn't mean we don't love them, but they weren't our boys. And this team is just, oh man, it's just something else. All facets of it, the way it plays. The pressing yesterday, oh my God, the pressing was fantastic. Seeing them like just in the grill, in West Ham players' grill, and they didn't know how to deal with it. And then just off the field as well, the energy that they have and the connection they have with the fans. I am so in love with Nottingham Forest right now. And yesterday was magnificent. So, yeah, I just wanted to be on here to share that with you boys.
Lovely. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it, mate.
Great cameo.
That was
great
cameo.
Absolutely.
And Mark, I'll just say to you, you were a doubter of Ryan Yates all along, and I told you that Ryan Yates was a good player, and he's been in such good form. I can't believe you've been a detractor of Yates all this time. So,
and on that
note, bugger
off. Yeah. Do one, Mark. Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Hey, it was the best cameo since my cameo of the turkey episode. Can you remember that you and Mark did a video? Yeah. Right. Let's get back to talking about Forest and not talking about casinos and everything like that. Mark just mentions there about how likable having this the current Forest team is, and I think that is key. Is last season I did struggle. I know obviously there's a few players in there still that were there towards the tail end of last season, but whether that was to do with the points deduction and it just being a bit of an uncertain time and maybe under Cooper, but I just felt like I couldn't really relate to that Forest team, and I think every football fan at a football club wants to be able to do that. And I think this season, as Mark alluded to, it just seems like everyone's smiling, everyone's happy, there's a great buzz off the pitch, and there is that relationship there between not just the fans and the players, but the fans and the club now as well.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're third in Premier League. I mean, it's pretty simple equation, isn't it? I mean, I think last season, considering the points deduction and the uncertainty around that, and then Nuno came in, and it's a really difficult time to come in as a manager under that pressure to try to establish yourself. Yeah, it's pretty simple, isn't it? You know, when your team is third in the Premier League, particularly when it's Forest against the odds, and in the backdrop of there being this feeling of sort of injustice towards the PGMOL and the FA for the fines and all that sort of stuff, then it's turned out to sort of be quite a good mix really for Forest. But yeah, I mean, we're third in the league, we're scoring goals, we're beating teams comfortably, we're beating rivals away. I mean, it's absolutely magic. I think the conversation really is how does this look in 10 games time? You know, after the first 10, do you think we can maintain it? I mean, are your teams going to figure what do we think?
Well, I think in fact before David gets in and has his take, I think I read a tweet last night from a Liverpool fan, and it said that defeat to Forest didn't look as bad as it did for them back then than it does now. And I think that's really key is, people called that Liverpool result fluky. And look, it might have been Forest might have won that game and then we might have lost the next 3-4 and lost all of them since, but we haven't, right? And we've maintained that. That's shown consistency. But I don't just think that the Liverpool game, but I think the standout performance against Leicester 3-1, it's Friday night. A lot of the people, a lot of the media are there. A lot of fans are watching it on the telly as neutrals. Yesterday as well, 3-0 in the Premier League. It's a bit of a rare scoreline unless you play in Man City or maybe Arsenal in the 21st century, right? You don't see that too often. So I think that the consistency is already there. It's just how long Forest can keep it going. And of course, we're going to hit a bad patch naturally. That bad patch might be at the end of the season, or it might be next season. We might keep it going for the next 6 months. But I think
I just look at it, Max, and think no one's going to want to play against us. Like, it's really difficult to predict. But the way you hear Nuno talking about the standards and talking, he sounds sort of almost like lovingly ruthless. The players love him. He's really calm, but he's got this edge about him that it's never enough. And we're always reaching for the next level. There's clearly no complacency in his messaging towards the players. And so that sort of fills me with confidence. And it also makes me think, like, City and Arsenal, they're not going to want to play us. And that doesn't mean we're favourites, but we're an absolute arse to play. How dogged they are, the determination, the yards they cover, the fight in it. All those things that you want to see as a fan. I think we've got in abundance, and I don't think that those things seem like transitory things that are going to change. Do you know what I mean? Or they're things that are built into the squad. They're foundational things, and that's what's so impressive. Is it's not just like, oh, Hudson-Odoi had a good game today and he won the game for us, or Morgan Gibbs-White was electric. Everyone is doing the small things right. And so that is what sort of encourages me to think, I don't think that we're just going to sort of slip off and end up 14th, which if we finish 14th, at the start of the season, you probably took that. I really think the foundational things they've got, and that's what fills me with confidence.
Yeah. Do you agree, David? Do you think that Forest can almost maintain this European place at the minute?
Well, the time to play us, if you're one of the opposition clubs, is actually now. We've got a couple of injuries in midfield. We had James Ward-Prowse out suspended, and Morgan Gibbs-White was injured. So
and the manager's not even on the side.
And the manager's not able to stand on the sideline of the pitch. And so, it actually makes sense to play us now. And in a game or two, we're going to get a couple bit more back. James Ward-Prowse will be a little bit more settled. And so we're as strong as we can possibly. Even Taiwo responded really well to the Leicester City chant the other day, and he seems really eager to try and prove himself and win the ball, and also force Forest to buy a developmental young striker rather than a second or first choice striker that can come in. And I'll throw it back to you boys. Who right now as a Nottingham Forest player is an out-of-form player?
Yeah.
Remember we used to play Jesse Lingard. We're like, I guess we put Jesse Lingard in the team because he's out of form and he's less out of form than this guy. Who is genuinely out of form in Forest at the moment? And I think that we could talk about the player that I think you both might answer, but interested, Max Hayes, who do you think, who's genuinely out of form?
I'd have maybe, if I had to say one, I'd have potentially said Taiwo, but maybe that's a bit unfair. I think given his...
But he's a bench.
Well, if we're talking about players that just, start on the pitch, I don't think there is one, right?
I'll put my neck out there. If I had to choose one, I'd say it was Alanga, but not because he's playing poorly, but because I don't think that he is as direct as he could be, or as direct as Callum Hudson-Odoi. I think that when he gets the ball, he needs to use his pace more and try to knock the ball past players. But then, caveat, I don't think he's playing poorly. I think everybody in that side is playing well. But if I was to ask for more from one of those players, it would be Alanga. Who is it for you?
I am going to challenge you, Max. Don't dispute bloody Alanga's accuracy of the pass is underrated. And I think he does more for us in terms of unlocking the other side of the field. But I'm on Team Alanga. I'm not dropping him for any of the other Sozas or Silvers.
No, I'm not dropping him. But you asked a question and I answered it.
Yeah, I know.
I gave you some. I stuck my neck on the line.
Yeah, you did. And I knew you were going to pick Alanga too, Max. I knew you were going to pick him.
Who's yours? If you had to pick a player?
I don't think any of them are out of form.
I don't think he's out of form. I don't think he's playing as well as I have seen him playing a Forest shirt. But like you say, it don't matter. It's the balance of the team is really good. I wouldn't drop him for the next game. I wouldn't, take drastic action, because things are working really well, obviously. But I would just like to see him be a little bit more direct occasionally. But yeah, I'm nitpicking there.
Yeah, and I also will throw it in there that, having Alanga that might not be at his best at the minute, and then you've got Jota Silva on the bench who can come on and Ramon Sosa. is it a slight thing in a way that Nuno sees it as, well, we can play Elanga for 70, 60 minutes, and if we're 1-2 goals up, like it has been for the last couple of games, well, then, off the bench, you bring on players with such creativity and such, we just look at the squad depth at the minute, and the bench looks excellent for Forest.
Imagine you've just dealt with the physicality of Chris Wood, the speed of Callum Hudson-Odoi and Elanga. You're like, we've seen these guys off.
Yeah.
And then you get those Jack in the boxes come on.
Yeah.
And then they bring on just the beast that is Taiwo Onyi just running at you. Like, that just must give people nightmares. Like, what a terrific outfit. Yeah. And then you've also got Elliot Anderson in the mix. And I'll throw it to you, Max Hayes, on Elliot Anderson. I thought yesterday he was a little jaded, not being starting. But I thought that it was the right move, given that they were probably trying to manage Morgan Gibbs-White. And so it was clearly a strat of, well, let's see how long Morgan Gibbs-White we can bring Anderson on. But boy, was Anderson good when he came on. 4 into 3, what happens?
Yeah, he was, mate. He was. You brought me quite nicely to the next point. It's time to single out some players, as we do most episodes. And let's talk Anderson then in terms of the stats. He played 27 minutes for Forest. He was the most fouled player actually on the pitch. He got an assist from one of those fouls also, of course, spotting Callum Hudson-Odoi for the second goal. Max, throwing it to you. When we talk about, players like Jota Silva and Ramon Sosa on the bench, but to say that we dropped Elliot Anderson, maybe a little bit harsh, but you can understand why, given it's Morgan Gibbs-White and he is ultimately the star man. But to have a player like that on the bench to come on, to make such an impact, as I've just mentioned there with the statistics, but also when you look at, you look back to the summer, and I was critical of the signing, I think, that is probably one of the best pieces of business that Forest have done, and it will help us going forward. And we'll look back at it in hopefully 3-4 years and think, that is a great piece of recruitment right there.
Yeah, I think he was injured, and I think it worked. He had a knock before the game, and so it worked out really nicely that Morgan Gibbs-White was coming back, and that he probably needed a bit of a breather. He's a magnificent player. I think he will have been devastated to leave Newcastle under the circumstances, knowing that ultimately he was a part of a PSR jiggery pokery deal. But that's one of the flaws of PSR, that it encourages clubs like Newcastle to sell their homegrown talent because you get 100% profit for it. So that's just a mini caveat. But I guarantee he'll have been absolutely gutted to leave. But I think it's one of those ones where it turns out the move that he didn't want is perfect for him. Because when you look at him playing for Newcastle, he never played in his preferred position. He's come in and he looks like an absolute sort of general in there. And also, lots of Forest fans expect or see a world in which Morgan Gibbs-White isn't a Forest player, because of how good he is. A top 4 finisher would certainly might change that. But the thing about Anderson is, 1, he's a very good replacement for Morgan Gibbs-White, and 2, it shows that Forest aren't reliant on Morgan Gibbs-White to succeed. So, I'm delighted to have him at the club. I think he looks more and more confident every game. He plays the way you want him to play. He's a bit like a Ryan Yates as well in that regard, but he's got the sort of technique of Morgan Gibbs-White. Just so lucky to have him. Great recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Spot on. Lots of comments on YouTube and Facebook. A few hundred people watching as well, which is good to see. Podcast friend Sarah says we are the dark horses of the Premier League this year. Yes, we can get Europe if the stars align. Few injuries, bit of luck, and morale stays high. This one that says, get through the next 6 games, see where we are. If we are still top 7, Europe is definitely possible. And this one from Phil also, again, this team seems to have confidence that they can win every game in the same way that the Championship promotion team did. Yeah, that's a nice little point there. David, I think with, Elliot Anderson and as Max was saying there about Morgan Gibbs-White, you almost feel that Forest aren't relying on players that much. And I know, that sounds a bit of a silly comment with Chris Wood and how many goals he scores us, but if a player does get injured, let's take Chris Wood out of the occasion, because maybe we would be a bit knackered right now if Chris Wood gets injured. But if you look at the midfield, and the same way that Danilo and Sangare got injured at the start of the season, you feel like, similar to that promotion winning team, actually, that Forest aren't just relying on one player or 2 players, a bit like last season where you're building teams around those. It feels now that every player knows their position, as we talked about earlier, knows their worth, and they're fighting for each other, that you feel it's almost that kind of next man up mentality we used to talk about?
Oh, it certainly is the next man up mentality. Last season, they were bandying around the statistics around Nottingham Forest poor form when Morgan Gibbs-White wasn't in the team. Now we literally haven't blinked with him out of the team. And you can make an argument that Elliot Anderson offers a bunch of elements that Morgan Gibbs-White doesn't. So we're not struggling for any of the positions. I wouldn't underestimate the ability maybe now of Taiwo if Chris Wood copped an injury. I think he would be in a better spot than he was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I also think let's not underestimate the strength that we have in Jota Silva up front. I think he could offer us a completely different perspective if the strategy presented itself. But so far, it's just made absolute sense to have Chris Wood. So, yeah, with the strength of the squad now, every player seems to have a position and a role and a contributing factor. It's just really setting us well up for if we do have to go into Europe or wherever. What about Murata? You know, every time he's come onto the field, he's filled in so well. So imagine if, you know, we were out without Milenkovic or Murillo, I wouldn't bat an eyelid with him in the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk about probably we'll start again with the defence for Forest, and we talk about Olorena, but you know the whole back four really. We'll talk about Chris Wood as well, but we do obviously mention Chris Wood a lot, and it's nice to mention other players that are so impactful for this Forest team. David, when you look at that Murillo and Milenkovic partnership at the minute, and the whole back four, Alex Moreno and obviously Olorena, would you make an argument that Forest currently have one of the best defences in the league and probably the cheapest defence when you think about it?
Well, we certainly have the cheapest defence. Goodness me, the best deal. The saying that I've liked bandying around is that Milenkovic is a better defender than Murillo, but Murillo's a better footballer. And so they're just a perfect yin and yang. And so there were 2 moments yesterday watching, and because of the angle where I was, there was a half second where I was like, oh no. And then, of course, Milenkovic is just there and he comes out from under the player and just tidies it up. And there was another one, like Murillo's scramble defense, when he has to move quickly and just understanding the reading of those plays is just absolutely terrific. And even when you look at the heat maps of where the 2 of Murillo and Milenkovic stand, they're really on each other's side, on their own side of the field. And so they're just so confident with each other. And that is just breeding confidence throughout the entire team. And even some of the skillful plays and playing it out of the back and the passing, and a few moments where, you know, Milenkovic just, you know, jinks around and switches it around. It's just so good to see the way Forest are playing it out from the back and with the fullbacks that we've got and the balanced fullbacks, as Mark said, certainly starts from the back.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Max, I think with the defence of Forest, you know, we talked about last season about set pieces and conceding from there, but, you know, aerially you've got Milenkovic, and Murillo, you've got Murillo, as David kind of alluded to there, about him always being a better footballer maybe as well in, you know, in terms of his technical ability and his pace and the way he can get out quite quickly. But, you know, is that Forest defence almost... Do you think it's here for the foreseeable? Because people talk about Murillo going possibly in January. People talk about Murillo going at the end of the season. Is it a defence that Forest, you know, we talk about consistency, but is it a defensive line that Forest can keep hold of simply? And also maybe just throwing this one at you as well. If Forest do well this season, let's, you know, all right, maybe Europe, but even just a top 10, we're an attractive club in January, and maybe Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White don't fancy going.
Yeah. I'd be really disappointed if any of them left in January. I think we'll really struggle to keep Murillo past the end of the season for sure. I think there's a strong argument to say that staying at Forest another year at such a tender age, developing in his craft, if Forest can get a European space, then even more so. You know, we can be one of the main men in the European side at a club with such rich European history. But in answer to your question, I think, it'd be really difficult to keep both of them, Milenkovic and Murillo, if we keep going this way, but particularly Murillo. You know, he's got the eyes of the biggest sides in Europe, biggest sides in the Premier League on him. But I'd be really disappointed if, you know, that an offer was accepted in January. why accept an offer mid-season when his stock's only going to rise towards the end of the season anyway? So yeah, I
It
think
might be 70 million, Max.
Sorry,
It might be 70 million reasons to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. But I don't think someone's going to come in with an initial bid of 70 million quid. So look, we'll see how all this plays out. I don't know. I just think for the balance of the squad in what could be a historic season for the club, just keep him. But we'll see.
I reckon Murillo right now looks a little. He loves Forest and he loves being there, but he does know. I think he just looks like he knows his time with Forest might be coming to an end. He doesn't look as. Did you guys understand what I mean? Like he doesn't look as in, and he doesn't like he's 9 out of 10 enjoying it, whereas Olarena's 10 out of 10 enjoying it. Morgan gives White, Yates, they're 10 out of 10. Like he's loving it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being critical by any means, but if a club comes in and they're offering double his wages that he's getting now, it's going to be very difficult for Forest to hold on to that player.
Yeah, I know what you
absolutely.
mean. It's a little bit sort of amateur psychology, isn't it? But I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. I've looked at it and thought, oh, does he fancy it? As much.
Yeah,
as
does he fancy it? He looks like a guy that knows he's about to break up with his girlfriend, but he still loves her. For a bad analogy,
yeah. I think, but you're right. He knows, doesn't he? I honestly think this guy's generational talent. I think this is going to be he could be one of the greatest centre backs that in the modern era. I really do believe that. You look at his frame, yet despite that, how quick he is. There was, and I thought you were going to mention it, that moment with Jared Bowen when I think Bowen leaves something in on him, gets the ball off him, and Murillo tracks back, absolutely puts the afterburners on, and then manages to turn and smile at Jared Bowen. You'll have only seen it if you were sort of maybe in the A block towards. But anyway,
I know what you're on about. Yeah,
the cockiness and I love that about him. The needle. I think he's got everything. I really think he's got everything to become a generational talent. His next move is massive, and staying injury free is massive.
That's true.
But I can't think of. Honestly, I think he's far better technically than Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah.
He needs to resist the urges from the Forest fans to shoot every time he gets the ball in any remote position that you can remotely. It's like we think he's Pierre Van Hooijdonk and he's going to score from 40 meters, but it's very entertaining.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. Let's rattle through and try and get through some more players before we finish up. Let's talk Callum Hudson-Odoi. Of course, a brilliant goal. Why on earth West Ham left him unmarked on that set piece? Maybe Lopetegui wants to get sacked or something, but I don't know who's in charge of West Ham set pieces because that was a bit of a poor decision. But Hudson-Odoi does what he does. He capitalises on that, and it was a great goal. And not taking that away from him, he's scored as many non-penalty Premier League goals now, which is 9 in 2024, at the same as Mo Salah and Bukayo Saka. So there you go. He's up there with the very top and the top 6 where Forest find themselves at the minute. David, when you look at Callum Hudson-Odoi, as we were just talking about their personalities and maybe Murillo not almost in it as much, but Callum Hudson-Odoi is loving life. He's dancing with Olareina. That relationship you can see. He's obviously this big influential player in the dressing room. And, we talk about it every episode, but it must breed confidence when he's scoring. The fans are singing his name with a new brilliant chant and just everything's going right for him. And in a way, he's turned his career around, given, the injuries he had when he was younger.
Well, for Callum Hudson-Odoi is the pinnacle or the stand-up poster, really, for what Nottingham Forest offers all of these Premier League players. It's the land of opportunity. He was unsure where his career was going to go. He couldn't crack it into the Chelsea team, and he comes to play for us. And he's an absolute standout performer. And he's so much like many of the other players. Alanga couldn't quite crack it. And, Morgan Gibbs, what was he going to do at Wolves? And Moreno couldn't get into Villa. And Callum Hudson-Odoi is just absolutely loving life. And what is so entertaining about the way he plays, it's one thing to know what his move is, Max. It's another thing to stop it. And so now he's got teams so frightened of him pulling that move on them that they're either double marking him or he's able to cut through on that left-hand side. So how many other How many nice little through balls did we see from Murillo on that side? There was the one for Moreno and also the one for Anderson that they were playing through. He's just also so dangerous that he's creating so much for the rest of the team. And he's also just so skillful. Like, he's just touch and speed. Like, he's just a terrific. Like, how can he not work as a player for Chelsea? Like, how can you just got to look at that and go, what went wrong for those guys, don't you?
Well, you look at Chelsea, don't you? And it just sort of accentuates how much of an absolute mess it is at board level. That they've spent whatever they did on Mikhailo Mudryk, and look at Callum Hudson-Odoi. And I think you're absolutely right. That's what Forest can give to these players, is a place that they can call home, which sounds cliche but isn't, because there's fans that are rooting for them. There's slightly less expectation. There's got a clear way of playing. And I think the big concern though is we've got so many players that how long are they going to value that for? And I don't mean to be cynical, and I'm not saying that they don't care about Forest, but everyone's got a price tag, and there are so many players in this Forest side. Crikey Moses, Alanga, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson as well. Murillo, all of these players. You would not be surprised if other quote unquote bigger clubs with more sort of money behind them would want to sign those players. And so, whilst I do think that's going to be a concern for us. How do we replace 3 of those 6 players that inevitably leave? What does that look like for us in terms of a recruitment policy? Because what we want to be doing is something like Brighton. And I think the next transfer window is going to be really telling for Forest and where they are strategically at a board level. Because my question is, and I don't know the answer, have they just been really lucky that they've had a good window and they've managed to sign the right players? Or, so yeah, are they lucky, or is this a real strategy, something that's going to play it year in, year out? We buy in players, they get better, we sell them for more. We buy in players, they get better, we sell them for more. And I think that's going to be the big challenge for Forest off the field, is how do they establish that as a club so that it doesn't matter if Callum Hudson-Odoi leaves, it doesn't matter if Murillo leaves, etc.
Yeah, I'm actually going to throw it back as well, and Max, and say, and I was thinking about this yesterday. If Forest are in the top, let's say top 7, come the January window opening, is that a time where the club look and Marinakis thinks, hang on a minute, adding just a few key additions, I'm talking maybe 2 players here, a striker and I don't know, a winger if the right person comes about, or let's say that Forest just go out and get a Premier League striker, he says in quotation marks, but that's where you wonder whether Marinakis will look then at strengthening the recruitment even more, because he knows what's at stake. There's something to play for. It's not going to be a mid-table finish.
Yeah. No, I think it would be wise to do that.
I was going to say that the recruitment looks more strategic and considered with Nuno now at the helm.
Yeah,
so I think it's a few things different going on at the same time. One is the Marinakis family and that waterfalling down to the recruitment team. They're just better at it now. They're 3 years in. They made a mistake with Lingard and a couple other ones. They just worked out, which players work and which ones don't. So you've got that. Then you've also got, because they bought so many players, they have hit on a couple. They've hit on Morgan Gibbs-White. So because they've hit on a couple of players, it just gives them a little bit more flexibility. And they've also signed most of the players to long-term contracts. So really the only contracts we're talking about are Zola Reyna and Chris Wood, who if they left, we'd probably be okay. We signed a new striker in January and we got plenty of fullbacks. It's not like we've got contract problems with Morgan Gibbs-White and any of these ones. So we should really be able to manage and understand, when is the Murillo bid coming in? And if the Murillo bid's coming in at this time, have we lined up the replacement for Murillo?
That's the key question for me.
Have we got
right? That's the key.
Have we got them in?
Do they know?
Because if you could get £70 million for Murillo and Morato slots straight in, and your team dips in performance by 2%, then that's an enormously good trade, because then you've got 70 million to go buy, 3 Chris Woods. And so I just feel like they're in a really good considered spot for considering all the different players. And also, of the squad of the 25, there's really only Emmanuel Dennis who's not really contributing or playing some role, I think. So I'm feeling really good about the squad shape at the minute. if you can't tell, Max's.
No, I love it, and I think it makes total sense what you're saying, and I want to be clear. I think, I hope that this last window, this summer, everything they've done is to turn to gold. Even the likes of Souza and Silva, who aren't playing as much, but you just look at them, you're like, they are ready. But, they don't need loads of time. They can come in and contribute straight away as they have. I guess it's just I don't know, the analytical part of my brain is trying to think, was that a flash in the pan? And I don't think it was. But when you look at the likes of Brighton and the likes of Villa, who've shown how to sustain themselves and survive and really progress as Premier League sides, we have to be doing that. And I really hope that is happening. And I do believe it probably is. But it's a funny club, Forest. And it's got its quirks, hasn't it, with Mr. Marinakis, and all of these fines and things like that. So I just think it does that. Does his charisma marry itself up with the measured thinking of a Brighton? And I find it difficult to connect those things. But the evidence is actually, despite his charisma and his, you can call them quirks, or you can call it disgraceful behaviour if you believe the FA about him spitting. Despite all of that, what I am seeing a bit more of a connection is that there is actually this measured, reasoned approach, and I hope that that's the case. And that, do you know what I'm saying there? That those things are married together.
Can I tell you a funny story? Can I tell you a funny story, fellas? In where I was sitting on the weekend, 4 rows in front of some of the players, I said to the person next to me, "We're up 2-0," and then I said, "Yeah, but it's Forest, we can blow it." And they're saying, "You can't say that with Danilo 3 rows back." And I'm like, "Oh, sorry, guys, you're right." But as you said, Max.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were in the dugouts, David, by your seats.
No, not quite in the dugouts, but I was very lucky, Max.
Yes, very nice. Right, we'll wrap it up. In fact, it's cracked me up. My dad has just messaged me with a picture of my mum, my dad, and my dog, all with the wood burner on, watching us on the big telly in the living room. So, there you go. That's what you can do with your Sunday evening for Garibaldi Red. Who would want to watch us through with the fire on if you've not got anything better to do with your Sunday evening? Right, let's finish up, shall we? And we will talk about in fact, because we've tried to get through so many players, but I'm a bit wary of time and everything like that. Let's finish it up with, and we'll start with you, Max. Can Forest on? I know we've gone around the houses a little bit with it, but can Forest maintain this European place? Can Forest continue what they're doing?
Yeah, and because I really think it, not that I think it will happen. I'm not sort of one of those, Forest sort of like that. I hate that about sort of online sports stuff. But I really think we can, and I think we can because what I said earlier, they've got the foundational sort of, I guess, culture and behaviours and patterns already down. I don't think anything about our success this season has been luck. I think it's all been deserved, and we and then the rest of Premier League supporters are catching up and realising that this isn't just a flash in the pan, that this is serious. And I think it's all credited to Nuno. What I find fascinating is after he got sacked from Spurs, he was almost written off, wasn't he? And there was a lot of, I guess you could say, he was tainted by that. But when you look at what he did at Wolves is what he's doing with us, making us a European outfit. So we shouldn't sleep on Nuno. I think he deserves an incredible amount of credit. Yes, Max, I do, because I think the evidence is there that there's longevity in this, that this isn't just random.
David, you agree?
Look, in 94-95 season, Max, we were sitting in a similar position. We dropped a match for points to Blackburn and a whole bunch of others. November's going to be difficult. We know every season of the Premier League is long and it's 38 matches. What I will say is the energy and they're just having fun playing. And so we're having fun watching them. So why not believe? Why not get behind them? Why not have a crack at Spurs and Man City and some of these other teams? And if we cop a loss, guys, that's okay. We're far above our expectations right now of where we might sit. And so these next few matches, boy, they're a big set of matches. Like I was looking at it before. It is Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City, Man United, Spurs, and Villa. Goodness me. That is, we might take 9 points. out of those 6 matches. There's a couple of there's a Brentford and a couple of others in between there, but
we don't. It's only Brentford, David. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Can I just say, I don't even know where Brentford is. That's how we reckon.
Really? Do you know?
Where is it?
It's in London, mate.
Yeah, I figured it was in London.
Yeah, because you live in those ends, don't you, Max?
Well, I live North London, but yeah. But no, I I think we can do
Let's
it.
also not forget Forest.
Can I just quickly ask? We all sort of think that we can. At this point now, what's the lowest we can finish where from this point it's a disappointment? Do you know what I mean? So obviously we'd love to finish 4th and we think, oh, maybe we can get a European spot potentially. But where does it become, oh, that was a disappointing season considering where we were after 10 games?
Maybe if Forest finished 15th, probably 14th would be a little bit disappointing after the start, right? If you finish 12th, 13th, that's still you know, you're moving up every year. So I'd say it's about, you know, small consistency. And the Premier League's such a hard league.
Mm.
Go on, David.
Max needs Forest to finish 12th so that he can tear me a new one because I called him a fool for thinking that Forest could finish 12th. So anything lower than 12th will be a disappointment for Max. I'll just say this, Forest. Here's the thing. It is very difficult to be a newly promoted team and come up and have success. And over the last 45 years, it has been proven that Nottingham Forest have done it twice where we've come up. Sure, it's not as quick this time, but there's something in that energy around the people in the club, and this stuff doesn't go away. Guys, we're in for a special time. Let's get behind it. And as you know, one of the captains of Forest fans embracing international fans, let's try and we should all be working to get as many people to be Forest fans as we can right now, because now's the time. I met Frank Clark yesterday and I said to him, you're a big part of the reason why I support Nottingham Forest, because of the team that you built in 94, 95. And in the year 2040, we want people coming up to Nuno Espirito Santo and saying, you're the reason I support Forest. It's just a special time. So, yeah, 4th. I'll be disappointed if we're 5th. Nah, maybe 8th.
Very nice. Very, very nice, mate. Well said. Some nice words there. We'll end it. I'm going to end it actually on a little bit of a. I was thinking about saying this yesterday. I can remember a couple of years ago. It was about 4 or 5 years ago now. When I used to do some work for Forest, I can remember we did a promotional video for kids for a quid. I don't know if you can remember all of that. And we did this big video about getting fans down and everything like that. And I can remember we filmed it on a Tuesday night. And Forest played Preston in the Championship. Oh, I hate Preston. Played them so much, didn't we, in the Championship? Forest lost 3-0 that night. I can remember, and it was that bad that the club couldn't even air the video. I can remember the club rang me up and said, look, we can't use the video on social media because of the amount of abuse we'll probably get from fans, and B, just how bad it will look on the club kind of sharing this happy promotional video, given that Forest were going through a really rough period of time. So I just think we have to all acknowledge, someone that's followed Forest from, and as we all have, from when we were born, I think we have to acknowledge where and how far we've come as a football club. Wherever we finish this season, the start to this campaign has been like no other. It's been brilliant. It's the best since the olden days. No disrespect to the older generations, and Max, you talked about it earlier, but me and you have never. Yes, the promotion was great, but when did we ever think we'd see Forest at 3rd? At the start of November, on Sunday, the 3rd of November, when would we ever think that Forest would be 3rd in the Premier League? So I just think we've all got to acknowledge where we are as a club, how far we've come, and great credit to Forest off the pitch. They've done some great work this week as well. The Warriors video with the Down syndrome team going. We were lucky yesterday with Footprints to go and raise money around the Forest fan zone, and we've raised quite a bit, and they gave us a great interview on the fan zone and 2 pages in the programme. So Forest are getting everything right, and I just thought I'd share that because I think things are moving very nicely at the minute. Long may it continue, both.
Max, I'll just say it's a great time for everyone involved with Nottingham Forest, except for the poor character that has to edit match day, or has to edit the post-match videos, because he's a hell of a lot busier now because he has to do one every week, whereas last season he was doing one every 3 to 4 weeks. So now that guy is going to need some more staff because we're winning a hell of a lot more matches. Match day pass.
Yeah. Yeah, the match day passes. We love it. Right, that'll do us nicely. Max, thank you as ever, mate. Really appreciate it. And we'll sure we'll speak to you soon. David, appreciate it. Safe flight back, David. When do you go? When do you return to
Flying
Australia?
Flying back on QF2 on back to Sydney, and it is only 12 months until there's a direct flight from Sydney to London, so that'll make it a hell of a lot easier for me to come over and see Forest matches. So can't wait. It's been a terrific time, and to anyone who knows me and has seen me at Nottingham over the last couple of weeks, it's been absolutely tremendous getting to know everyone and seeing everyone, and it's very emotional for me leaving. So thank you, Max, for having me on, and great to hang out with you other Max as well. So come on, you Reds.
Yes, absolutely. Come on, you Reds. That does us nicely. Remember, we'll be back throughout this week and with review episodes throughout the whole of this season, wherever Forest end up finishing. We've got some good guests on. We all go to games as well, so that helps with our opinions. So keep listening. It really does mean a lot. Give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Forest are third in the Premier League. Yes, you heard that right. Come on, you bloody Reds. See you soon.